JaxGuruji Sangat ji. Today I will be reading two satsangs of a devotee, pages 51 through 58. First satsang under Guruji's Chhatar Chaya. In April 1995, we first met Guruji in Delhi. My chacha and chachi, uncle and aunt, had first met Guruji and took my parents to meet him. My parents in turn took my wife and me. We had just married a few months before, in October 1994. In those days, Guruji would dip his Rudraksh mala into water and Charnamat, blessed fragrant water, so made would be offered. Langar was given to just a chosen few, and Guruji would himself distribute the chapatis along with his blessings. Guruji himself just lived on liquids for most of the week. He broke his fast on Thursday nights with some solid food and ate food only on Fridays and Saturdays. In the months that followed, we visited Guruji a few times, but he didn't say much to us. And then, early in July, Guruji left for his village in Punjab. As he was getting into his car, he turned to my mother and said, "Apni nu de tuban nu check karain, kuch problem hai. Get your daughter-in-law's fallopian tubes checked. There is some problem." The gynecologist was approached and she said she would pass a dye through the tubes and attend to my blockage if there was one. This was done, and the doctor felt that was the end of the matter. My wife, in the interim, had a miscarriage. We visited Guruji in Chandigarh and in Jalandhar in the next few months, but we still never had the opportunity to have an extended conversation with him. At the same time, in all fairness, we never asked for anything, nor indeed ever wanted anything from him. Then my wife got pregnant again. The pregnancy was barely confirmed when the doctor said that the fetus was not viable and a D&C would be necessary. This was done. A few days later, my wife suddenly complained about an intense pain in her abdomen. My initial reaction was that this couldn't be a gynecological problem, but the pain was increasing so rapidly that we rushed to the hospital. The doctor too arrived and straight away took my wife to the examining room. Soon the doctor came out and said to me, "Go and organize some blood." It was an emergency. Apparently, there was another healthy fetus growing in my wife's fallopian tubes. The ectopic pregnancy had burst, destroying one tube and badly damaging the other. A fatal septicemia threat was caught just in the nick of time, and with Guruji's grace, my wife's life was saved. Too late, but the doctor now realized what Guruji had been saying about the fallopian tubes, and of course, normal chance of conception was now 0. For a while now, Guruji had not been available, neither in Jalandhar nor Chandigarh. And, in fact, we were fast concluding that Guruji was not going to come to Delhi at all. Then, Lori, 13th January 1998, my mother suddenly came out of her puja room to say that Guruji's fragrance was all over the home and emanating from his shoes that he had given her. In the home, we all experienced the fragrance and understood it to mean that Guruji was thinking of us. This contented us. A couple of hours later, we had a call from Guruji's Sevadar, devotee, to say Guruji was in town and wanted to meet us at night at Siddharth Hotel. A small handful of people were invited. In the course of the next few months, it was this small group of people that Guruji occasionally met with. And on 13th April 1998, Baisakhi, the doors of Empire Estate were thrown open and Guruji Sangat was invited in. Guruji was now seated in his gaddi, chair. We were asked to join in Langar Seva, and soon we were involved with washing utensils, making chapatis, and whatever other kitchen duties came to hand. In addition, I was also involved with the Chai Seva. It was August 1998 that Guruji first had a long one-on-one conversation with me. He called me to his room and at first just chit-chatted. Then he talked to me in depth and blessed me, and I was ecstatic with the joy of his exclusive attention. My wife and I were now in Guruji's stan 7 days of the week and completely involved with seva. However, after a while, my wife began to reduce her visits to Empire State. She wanted to take a break and felt dejected as she saw others being blessed and not her. However, she never asked me to discontinue going there. I continued at Guruji's, happily involved with performing the seva shorn of any expectations, just to be in Guruji's presence with contentment itself. This state of affairs continued right through the following year too. Early in 2000, through Guruji, sent for my wife. This was sometime around Shivratri. General Grewal asked her to press Guruji's feet, and in the course of her performing this seva, Guruji, in his own manner, said he had blessed her. We did not know quite what Guruji meant by that statement, but it was soon to become clear. My wife exhibited some symptoms and we went for a pregnancy test. Her pregnancy was confirmed. The doctor was stunned. How did this happen? All my wife had was a single, highly damaged fallopian tube. How could a pregnancy happen via that source? Subsequently, Guruji called the gynecologist, in his own way, to receive his blessings. My wife was told to move to her parents' home and stay there for the course of her pregnancy. And Guruji found unique ways of staying in touch with the baby in the womb. He gave me certain articles of clothing, his t-shirt, his shorts, and later, when baby was growing, his lungi, and asked my wife to wear them. Later, as the pregnancy progressed, he asked me to carry his pillowcase and bedsheet over to where my wife was staying and asked her to use them. About a month before the baby was due, a fresh problem was found by the doctor. The baby was found to be in the breech position. The doctor began suggesting a cesarean operation might be necessary, but Guruji was not in favor of that remedy. He sent some prasad to my wife, told me to make her eat it at that very night. The next morning, we scheduled to visit the doctor for an examination, and to our surprise, the baby had turned. The threat of a cesarean receded. About a month later, my wife went into labor early morning, and soon the contractions were strong and frequent. But the baby's head wasn't locking in, and dilation wasn't happening. The doctor again feared an emergency cesarean operation. I phoned for Guruji but couldn't reach him. But soon a message came. I was to go and do samdan, donation. Guruji then called me and asked, "Message mila? Did you get the message?" I affirmed that I had done as told. Then Guruji said to tell the doctor to proceed with the normal delivery. And indeed, delivery was entirely normal and smooth, in spite of the cord wrapped around the baby's neck, a later learning. So we experienced miracle after miracle, with the most wonderful one being the blessing of a beautiful baby girl. We were even more fortunate. Guruji visited in the hospital post-delivery. I learnt later that day Guruji had been at Bare Mandir all morning, alleviating the kasht or difficulties for facilitate the smooth birth. Guruji blessed our daughter even more with naming her himself. Our daughter took her own time to toddle, and we were beginning to get concerned about this fact when Guruji summoned us to Jalandhar, where he was visiting just then. I carried our daughter in my arms and went visiting Guruji at his Jalandhar Mandir. As we opened the outer mesh door, Guruji called out, "Aage! Chad de bacche nu, have you arrived? Put the baby on the floor." And as I did, our daughter didn't just take her first walking steps, she ran across to Guruji. I could have worried about all the stuff lying around the mandir which a toddler could have stumbled over. But I also knew that under his chhatar chaya, or the protective umbrella of his care, she could never come to any harm. Such is the grace of my Guru, such is his meher. Second satsang. Like the sun rising suddenly on a sodden landscape. It is not within my capacity or competence to put into words the supremacy of my Guru. For how can I do justice in cold words to his colossal divinity? However, in a sincere tribute of love and reverence for my Guru, I share my experience of supreme blessings with his approval. The path we seek is not different from the summit of salvation, the purpose of our being. The journey from seeking to reaching his summit is a cinch for those who entrust their reins in the hands of their Guru, for we are not pathfinders, but followers. I was born into a Jat Sikh family. My family had to its credit happiness, tasteful living, good education, and discipline. Throughout my childhood, I have always been influenced by my grandfather, a devout follower of his faith and of his master. Slowly, the import of finding a guru dawned on me. I was married into a Jat Sikh family. My husband, the only son after 3 daughters in his family, was brought up with a lot of affection, which he seemed to have taken for granted. He learnt to have his way. To his negligence towards the family and lack of responsibility towards himself can perhaps be attributed to his fondness for alcohol, his major problem. It is a dream of every girl to be happily married, and I was no exception. But when a family is haunted with alcoholism, nothing is any longer in anyone's control, and worldly fetters and problems become insurmountable. The burden of responsibility and my unhappiness soon delusioned me. During that time, my grandfather visited me. My inner turmoil reached out to him without words, and he assumed I needed some help. My eyes filled with tears, and I told him that I wanted him to pray for me to find a Puran Guru, a complete and perfect master. However hard a mortal being may try, she cannot find an enlightened master. The master finds her when she is ready to tread his path. Shortly, my mother took me to visit GuruJi in Chandigarh. From the moment I stepped into GuruJi's, I could smell roses, and the sight of him flooded my eyes with tears. For the next few hours that I sat there, tears kept streaming down my eyes. Many times after first meeting GuruJi, I could not control the outburst of emotions, and I simply could not understand why. Every time I visited him, I experienced a peace that passed understanding. It was as if the flood of tears was singularly transforming me by some alchemic cleansing. In the meantime, my husband began to drink more. He lost all sense of responsibility and was squandering money. I tried telling him about GuruJi and also persuaded him to meet GuruJi. He laughed at me, saying such gurus were a dime a dozen, and teased me about my conservative attitude. He also did not approve of my visiting GuruJi. Around November 1999, my husband was posted to Lebanon on a UN mission. There, his drinking problem worsened, and he was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver. Our world fell apart. I took the first flight to be with him. The doctor clearly stated that his liver had packed up and that he would require a transplant within 2 years. To find a donor in such a short period was a near impossibility. Even if a donor was found, a transplant would have been exorbitant and in many cases unsuccessful. Doctors cautioned my husband that even a single drop of alcohol taken henceforth would prove fatal. Meanwhile, my parents kept going to GuruJi and praying for my husband's life. After being in the hospital for a few weeks, we came back to Delhi. I requested him to meet GuruJi. He did come, But all the while that he was there, he sat in a corner and complained of how tired he was and how I had forced him to come. The same night, I approached Guruji and was so full of emotion that I could hardly speak. My mother and I prayed in front of him to save my husband, and Guruji replied, "How can I help him? He's a non-believer." In the days that followed, I visited Guruji alone because my husband would never accompany me. One night, after returning from Guruji's place, while I was fast asleep, a sudden great force, like a swishing wind, entered my room. I was so scared that I sat upright in my bed and started praying with my eyes closed. I experienced white light piercing the darkness and flooding the center of my forehead. Guruji was within that white light. He said he would cure my husband now. In the 15-20 minutes that followed, I smelt nauseating odors, similar to those that emanate from operating rooms. After a while, everything cleared up and I went back to sleep. Guruji told me he had blessed my husband. At the time of writing, 6 years have passed since that day, and my husband continues to drink relentlessly. Keeping in mind what the doctors had said, my family and I are amazed at how Guruji is looking after him day and night. My husband, in his own way, believes and recognizes the gift of life given to him by Guruji. The time-tested scriptures of the world all agree that before man is born, the day of his death is ascertained and that no one can grant him even a breath more. However, the power to burn man's karma lies within the Supreme Creator. Guruji is that cosmic director, the manifestation of that supreme power, who rewrote the play of my life. My family and I have experienced numerous incidents where we have called out to Guruji and have suddenly seen things fallen into place, as if touched by a magic wand. I once had the privilege of escorting more than half a dozen friends to whom I had been singing the praises of my Guru to meet Guruji. With my limited vision, I prevailed upon them to not ask for anything, though it was contrary to what I had done. When I touched the feet of my Guru, he looked at me and to my astonishment said that everyone came to him to ask for something. Like a divine mirror, Guruji apparently had caught the reflection of my mind, and each of my friends was blessed with their desires fulfilled. No one who comes near him ever goes back empty-handed. Upon touching his feet, a businessman might be blessed with prosperity, a sick man with health, and a student with knowledge. Some are aware of the gift they receive, others ignorant of the hidden blessings. His love knows no bounds, and immaterial of whether you are a believer or a non-believer, his grace touches everyone. He makes no demands, asks you to keep no promises, but slowly his divine presence weaves magic and transforms you from within. Every day, people ridden with sorrow come in his presence, and his grace illuminates their faces like the sudden rising of the sun over a sodden landscape. This too is a satsang of a devotee. Jai Guruji, Jai Sangat Ji. Thank you.